Dear viewers, welcome to the one-on-one set. Our guest tonight is Yovissen Parasuraman. He is a pastry chef. He even opened his cake studio recently this year, Jovi Cooks. Tonight, he's going to share with us more about his passion and ambition as a pastry chef. Yovissen, thank you so much for joining us in the studio of the MBC.
Thank you very much, Koya, for having me at the studio.
Yovissen, some people are born with natural baking skills and a certain flair for a craft. However, it is also a skill that can be learned in a kitchen or even a classroom. How did you develop this interest in baking?
So I actually was always interested in kitchen and pastry and everything to do with the kitchen really at a very young age. But I never actually thought of it as a career or something I would get into during my high school years. And it's only been a few years where I've put myself to the test and tried to do new things and get into this this industry and field. And this is where I realized that my work was actually very attractive to other people, and people liked what I was doing, and they enjoyed my cakes as well. So this is where I find myself now.
So it's something that you've always loved since childhood, eating and baking.
Yes, exactly. Eating and baking, but now it's mostly just baking more than less eating.
Yes, and your family as well is involved in this business of cooking, kitchen, restaurant?
Yes, exactly. So my family has always been in the hospitality business for quite some time. We actually have a restaurant, a seafood restaurant in the north. And my dad was very strong, passionate in his field. My two brothers are also very active in the restaurant and helping in the family business. And I found myself to be at the same time helping them and starting my company and my business as well.
So was entrepreneurship something that you always had in mind?
So yes, definitely. Entrepreneurship has always been something very interesting to me. The thing is, I always found myself, starting something for myself, and for me, it's thrilling, to do something on my own, and even, despite the long hours and the no rest time, it's still something very interesting to me. So.
And what are the different trainings that you've had in baking?
So, in terms of training and qualifications, I've done lots of internships throughout the years in different hotels of Mauritius. I've worked at Royal Palm. I've worked at the Oberoi. I've also worked at several other Mauritian hotels in kitchen and pastry department. And I've also done an internship in France at Paul Bocuse, Brasserie de l'Ouest, where I was in the kitchen as well, kitchen and pastry. And that has really given me the base, the base of bakery and pastry. But adding on to what I do now, it's mostly stuff that I've taught myself and self-taught stuff.
Yeah. But how did you get into this field? How did you start Jovi Cooks? It was actually during lockdown last year, right?
Yes, exactly.
Tell us more about it.
Yes, that was actually very crazy. So it was during the confinement, and I decided that, I should put something, when we get very bored of a confinement, I thought of doing something, an Instagram page where I would put on my food blogs and food recipes and putting pictures of my, the food that I make. And I called it Jovi Cooks because that's what I was doing, Jovi Cooks.
Yes.
And eventually I did a cake and I posted it online. And weirdly, it started getting lots of attention. And since then, people have been asking me, hey, can you make me a cake? And the orders kept going since that specific date last year. And since now, I'm doing what I'm doing now.
So would you say that lockdown, in a way, last year gave you the opportunity to build yourself, to reinvent yourself?
So I would say that the lockdown, the confinement, it was definitely a challenge for most people,
Yes.
But what I think it gave me, it made me, sit down and think and
to change the mindset, maybe.
Change the mindset and, to think about something else, to think differently, And yeah, it was definitely a challenge. Confinement was not,
Of course,
Very
for
positive.
everyone,
Exactly,
it was
for everyone.
difficult, but it was also a phase to
Exactly.
to
Exactly.
improve yourself, to be a better version and grow.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah.
And why have you chosen pastry instead of any other culinary fields?
So I chose pastry because first of all, I always find myself, more diverted towards this side of a kitchen. Like the baking process, the decorating process, and I also feel that I'm more of a creative person, and I find myself more towards this side of the kitchen.
So would you say that pastry making is more about accuracy and precision compared to any other forms of cooking?
Yeah, so I would say that pastry and baking, it's very precise, very technique, Not saying that kitchen is not technique, but I feel that the pastry side would be a bit more of, techniques and precision and, using a scale, etc. So yeah, I would say that, yeah.
And Yovissen, baking is also considered as both a science and art. I mean, the baker uses scientific knowledge of the chemistry to mix and blend ingredients to create familiar yet unique cakes. But their experience and personal philosophies also play an important role during the baking process. At what point would you say that pastry turns into a form of art?
So, most people would say that it turns into an art once you start decorating. But I feel that the art itself of every procedure of making a dessert or a cake is a form of art as well. For example, like preparing the batter and everything. This could be a form of art as well. But what I would say is the decorating process. That's really where people get creative. Pastry chefs get very creative in terms of a design and yeah.
You're right when you're saying creativity. How important would you say that creativity is during the baking process?
So I feel that creativity is one of what I choose to uncover. I've always been a very creative person since a young age, and I thought that I may use this to the maximum. And one special thing as well is I also try to work mostly from my own mind and my own creativity, rather than copying someone and just stealing someone else's
You try
work.
to be innovative.
Exactly, I try to be as much innovative as I can. I get inspired by other people's work or by other chefs' work, but I try not to replicate the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah, I try not to replicate the copy and do the same work, but get inspired by it.
I was actually coming to that. Where do you normally get inspiration? Is it through a lot of research work, or do you actually have any hobby at times that enables you to derive your creative self?
So how I get inspired? Okay, so I do follow and keep updated with pastry chefs and chefs around the world through social media. With the help of social media, it's very helpful. And I try to also bring my own touch to it at times.
Mhm. You try to improvise at times.
Yes, yes.
Who are the pastry chefs that you get inspiration from?
So I do get a lot of inspiration from British chefs, and also it's not specifically someone, but several ones. For example, there's Amaury Guichon. There's also Cyril Lignac, who are very well known. There's also Mercotte, a French pastry chef as well. And I feel that they're very inspiring to my work.
Yovissen, we are also actually surrounded by different shapes and textures. So sometimes by observing and staying curious, do you try to replicate those objects into your cake?
Yeah, it's weird because sometimes I'm just not working, and I'm like doing some random work, and I just see a shape or I see a texture, and I'm very intrigued by that and thinking, how could I put this into a form of dessert or cake? And that's when I realized that I'm working too much.
And do you actually have a specialty? You've just started, I know, but do you actually have something that you prefer, you do better?
Yeah, so I do have a special a speciality, I would say. It's a blueberry lemon cake, which I started doing last year, and ever since I've been trying to replicate the same exact cake every time I do it, because the results of this cake is just people love it.
And what is the dessert that you're the proudest of?
So the dessert that I'm the proudest of would be a Pavlova cake. So this
Tell
would
us
be
more about it. How do you actually bake it?
so all right. So the Pavlova cake is originated from Australia, if I'm not mistaken, and it's also one of my favorite desserts as well. It's basically something crunchy and on the outside, and something soft and moelleux and marshmallow inside. So that's one of my favorite desserts, and you can accompany it with any fresh fruits, and it's simply a delicacy.
Yovissen, nowadays we see that a lot of people also interested in the vegan lifestyle. So have you actually attempted to make a vegan cake?
So I have attempted to make vegan cakes, and they sold very quickly as well. But I feel that vegan is something which is just starting now.
Yes,
Um,
that's true.
Not starting now, it has been here for a while, but in
Gaining more
Mauritius,
popularity maybe.
exactly. And I'm also considering to add on more flavors as well to bring something special in terms of that menu for vegan. So stay tuned.
So would you say it is more difficult to make a vegan cake than a
Um,
normal one?
I wouldn't say it's more difficult. I feel that what's important is the ingredients you use and getting the right recipe, getting the right equipment as well, which forms a huge part of the result.
Yovissen, to be a pastry chef, it actually requires a lot of craftsmanship. All the creativity in the world, can't fake the skills it needs to succeed. What are the techniques or skills you believe a pastry chef should possess?
All right, so for sure it's creativity, patience as well. Patience is a huge thing I learned in terms of kitchen and pastry as well. The thing is, usually in the kitchen things are very quick, like on fire. Everything's like very stressful. On the pastry side, it's also stressful, but there is more time to wait, and there's sometimes more work where you need to take more time to do, and patience. So patience is definitely something I would say.
What are the techniques maybe you would say? You would suggest in
Okay,
someone who is
okay.
beginning this business?
So I would tell that person to continue practicing and be persistent. Persistent is very important. Uh, for sure to be passionate about what you're doing, because if you're not passionate about it, then you'll never see the improvement and everything.
You've said if the taste of the cake is important, so is the presentation. So how do you try to make a cake look visually appealing? Is it through the colors, the decorations?
So I've tried to do a style of cakes and keeping that way. So what I do is trying to keep the cake very simple, not too much as well, but the right balance, and also to concentrate what's on the inside rather than just making a beautiful cake. I try to focus a lot on the inside so that when the customer gets it, it's something looking nice and tasting nice as well.
And how do you try to bring your own touch in the cake?
So I think it works really like on my personality. I'm a very simple, very not too much. I'm a very simple guy. So then I try to show this throughout my work, simple, elegant, and keeping it elegant.
Yovissen, since we are talking about cakes, food is very deeply linked to occasions and memories. What is your most loving memory about food?
So I know there's one specific thing that my mom used to do when I was little, like it was a clafoutis aux pommes, so an apple clafoutis, and it's basically like a dessert rather, and she would do this during our tea time, and I would always remember the smell from like me being upstairs and her being in the kitchen, and it's definitely something that's brought me lots of memories and wanting to go towards this field. I've tried to replicate this dessert, but it never turns out to be the same as my mom's.
And you actually have also traveled in different countries.
Yes, yes.
So have you actually tried to pick up something different in that country and try to bring it in your cake through the way you bake it, through the way you present it? Tell us more about it.
So when I was doing my internship in France, I happened to have my apartment just near one of a very well-known coffee shop, and it was in Lyon actually, and that coffee shop had the best desserts, the best cakes in the region, and I found myself going there nearly every day to have like taste one dessert every day. That was also very inspiring to me, to be open to that type of coffee shop and
Exactly.
to get
And
inspired
different
by that.
cultures as well.
Exactly, exactly.
And share with us any kitchen disaster or any funny kitchen incident that happened to you and how you dealt with that. I'm sure
Alright.
there must be a lot.
Yeah. I mean, there are some conundrums, in the kitchen. For example, I mean, I remember when I was very young, I was so obsessed by meringue, and
It's quite difficult to bake that.
it's difficult, but once you get the technique and the practice, it turns out okay. But I was very young, and I had tasted a meringue, and I wanted to do the same thing again. So what I did is I looked up on a recipe, not knowing the technique, not knowing anything, and I prepared something. I don't know what I did. I tried to make a meringue out of one
Yes.
egg, and the meringue turned out to be a disaster. And I was so disappointed. I never wanted to get in the kitchen again. But soon afterwards, I tried it again, and it worked out.
It encouraged you to be better then.
Yeah,
What
for
are
sure.
the different challenges that you encountered in your journey so far? I mean, you've just started, but still.
Yeah. So some challenges I would say is the long hours of work, uh, being tired, But at no point did I, choose to quit. I've been very persistent, very determined to reach my goals, and so far it's going great. And just smile your way through it.
Yes. And tell us more about the different cakes that you actually make.
So what I make at the moment and sell, would be more of Australian and English cakes. For example, would be like chocolate cake, red velvet cakes with cream cheese frosting, pistachio, blueberry lemon cakes, and also muffins, cupcakes as well. And trying to bring a little different flavor every time, changing the flavors as well.
And how much time does it take you to actually complete a work?
So it depends really on what I do. For example, for a normal standard cake, it might take me 3 hours, 3 to 4 hours from start to finish, And now this involves like making the batter, cooking it, baking it, letting it cool, decorate, packing, and all this adds up to several hours. And now you've also got wedding cakes, which take a lot of time and a lot of technique, and
Okay.
so.
Yovissen, you're a youngster and you have a long way to go in this business. So how do you think that pastries, birthday cakes will evolve in the years to come?
So I feel that in Mauritius that's also been something quite recent, where there's been a sudden pop out of nowhere for cakes, and people are like going crazy on cakes. I feel that in terms of the future, over the next 5 years, 10 years, it's gonna be very different. People are gonna be more into this field, trying to bring their own touch and trying to be more creative as well.
More
Yeah,
creative, yes.
for sure.
And you've also recently won the Influencer Award in the food category.
Yes, indeed.
How
Yeah.
was that recognition for you?
So I actually got into this award. I didn't think too much about it. I was like, okay, let me just try and see. Then I got nominated, and there was two other girls with me, and they do some amazing work too. And I got into this award, and I realized that was my time to really, think about what type of content to post, what type of stories to put that make people interested in cakes and desserts and everything and food. So then I got onto TikTok, and I got onto putting more behind the scenes moments, and yeah, it just went from there. And eventually I even met some really great people in this field, like Mansoura. So she's been in this field for a very long time, and
very good in that.
exactly. And I've also been working with brands as well. So that's definitely an interesting path.
When you started your page last year, did you actually think that you will be an influencer in a year?
Yeah, no, I had no idea this would go to this, what it is now. But yeah, I mean, influencer, if you call it an influencer, but what I'm doing is what I feel is more of a passion, and something I like doing, and it's just been getting attention, I would say.
And you have actually reached around 8,000 followers. What, according to you, what are the content that you create that actually helps you to reach more audience?
So I feel that one aspect of what I do is, since I'm not a physical business, I'm more of a small business online, a social media platform.
Yes.
People need to form a trust in someone. I've noticed that lots of people, for example, they'll put a cake, but as a picture, but you wouldn't know who did the cake. And for me, it was very crucial that I put myself out there to, to show who's behind the work, and to show, that they can trust that person. So that's why I put myself out there, and I feel that gain some, let people have some trust.
In a way, we can say that social media has helped you to grow your business, right?
Definitely, and I never knew that social media would have that type of, power and impact on my business.
We are actually drawing towards the end of this episode, but before that, Yovissen, what are your objectives as a pastry chef now?
So my goals and objectives, I would say, is to, continue doing what I'm doing, keep the standards high, and always be creative, always be innovative, and perhaps inspire people to do the same as well.
Are you actually working on a new project?
Currently working on a new project, but I'll keep this as a surprise, and stay tuned.
Okay, we'll wait then. Yovissen, any message that you would like to give to our youngsters to encourage them to follow their passion like you've always been doing?
So one way I would motivate them is and what I always tell people, and what people have told me as well, is, don't think too much. Of course, there has to be a thinking process, but don't overthink it, and just go towards what you're passionate about, and start somewhere.
Thank you so much, Yovissen. It was such a pleasure to have you on the set of One-on-One and talk about your passion for baking.
Thank you to you, Culinary, as well, for having me today.
Dear viewers, we have now come to the end of this episode. Thank you for your time. We hope to catch you next week at the same time, same channel. Have a great evening.